Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. So today's reading was inspired by another tarot channel, the wonderful Awakening to Spirit. Cindy on that channel did a series of readings for the different astrological signs, which was essentially around who were they in the past, who were they now, and I think through an extended reading who they were evolving into. And I thought what a brilliant inspiration, what a brilliant idea for a reading. And so thank you to Cindy for the inspiration, because I thought that I'd like to look at it through the prism of a pick a card reading as opposed to each astrology sign as she did it. I think it's a very interesting sort of concept because we're all works in progress. We're all evolving. We all are partly made by the choices we've made before and will be made even further by the choices that we make in the future. So I think it's really good to have a focus on that and an understanding of that and our own dynamics and what we're trying to be. The other reason I wanted to do this reading, apart from being inspired by Cindy, is that I recently got a new tarot deck, the Penumbra Tarot by Ethne, who is also very well known on TarotTube. And this deck particularly drew to me for a couple of reasons for this reading. The first is the colouring of the backs, because it has a sort of very orangey, sort of yellowy sort of colour. And to me, that really speaks to the solar plexus chakra of the personal power energy. And so I think that's very evocative of this particular type of reading, and you coming into your personal power by truly deciding who you want to be and how you want to manifest that. The other part of it was that the actual imagery, which you'll see as we use the deck, is meant to be from the liminal spaces. So it's a sort of unmanifest, in between manifestation and the thought is sort of the liminal space. And so if we're looking at understanding the pathway we've been on and then moving into what we want to create for ourselves within ourselves, it seemed to me the liminal spaces are a really good artistic and sort of energetic signature to be using. So these two things together came together to make for this particular topic, which I'm quite excited about doing. So I'm going to put down the numbers for the different readings for those who like the numbers. What I've tried to do, apart from the numbers, and of course there's 4 piles here, so you can go to more than one if you feel drawn to more than one. There might be different aspects of your evolutionary process that we will look at. What I've tried to do is also use one of the decks that's going to be part of this, which is them in colour, to give a kind of colour energy to draw you into the deck. So for pile 1 we have rainbow, for pile 2 we have gold, for pile 3 we have blue, and for pile 4 we have green. Now I don't know if there's going to be a really strong emphasis on hope and colourful energy and pride under rainbow, or on speaking and the throat chakra for this one. It's just, that would be serendipitous if that was the case. But it's really just meant to help you align into the reading or readings that are most drawing to you. We're going to start off looking at the then and now, and that will also help make sure for you that you've gone to the right reading. If you don't feel the synergy there, maybe have a second reading to go and look at. And then we're going to move into the tarot about what you're evolving to and how to do that. And the last part of the reading is all the advice from Spirit to help that evolutionary process. So I hope you enjoy the reading. When you know which reading or readings you want to go to, as always, I've got the timestamps in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So this first layout of cards is the sort of then what you were, and then the now what you've evolved to, taking into account the card that drew you here. We're going to look similarly on some spiritual warrior and spiritual sort of energy as well in the then and now, but to just make it a bit clearer on the screen, I thought I'd start with these first because they're more like personality profiles, and then we'll move to the spiritual energy underpinning it before we look at what you're evolving to. So the fact that you came to rainbow, as I said, it didn't necessarily mean that was what was going to be here, but there is actually some synergy, I think, with the cards. There's certainly the sense of an explorer and someone who I think wants to pass on some of the exploration and the knowledge and so forth to others and has pride. I think many of the people who have come to this reading either are now in some form of parental or teaching role, or will be moving very soon to that, having been more in their own space and explorative and creative, moving to a position now more of some form of responsibility, I think, possibly power, leadership, where communication is going to become key. And in fact, you will be discovering within yourself at the moment that you are a very adept communicator. You may not have felt that about yourself, because when you're in your explorative stage, it looks as though you felt more introverted. But it is important to understand that introversion is not necessarily about an incapacity to sort of talk and speak and all those sorts of things. It's not even about being shy. It's about where you get energy from. And I think that you are making a decision now to shift out of that introversion into being a little bit more extroverted, not because it's necessarily for you, but I think it is because of some level of responsibility that you're moving into. So you have been always, and I think what is staying true in both stages, and I think would stay true for the evolution as well, you are essentially a hopeful person, very unique. You really want to be looking at what is new and exploring what is new and bringing all of that in. But you have a lot of pride and a lot of inclusion in your energy. In your past self with dog as the Chinese astrology, that's about being helpful and honest, trustworthy, unselfish, the good friend. You've always been that. That sense of responsibility for others you've always had. But it looks like in the last few years or in an earlier stage in your life, whatever time period this relates to in the past, you did that and you always connected with people, but you were in your own inner world and you were dancing your own dance. There is something colourful, something creative about you, something beautiful, something very, very sort of musical and incredibly physically adept and all those sort of things, and this capacity to explore both within and outside, but always very grounded on your friendships, the connections that you had, always very honest. So you weren't sort of someone who went off into your own world and didn't care about the impacts on others. You went off into your own world to find out who you were and who others were, to have greater connection and greater balance and dexterity and beauty in all your relationships and all your activities. And as I say, that has become a grounding for something over here, is it where you are more likely to be in some position of authority or have some protective energy over others. The rooster energy retains the adventure, so you're always going to be adventurous. It retains the sense of charity and the sense of caring about others. And it's funny and it's loyal, but it can be more argumentative. So it looks to me as though you spent an earlier part of your life where it was about exploring who you were and who other people were, and now you are actually having to take some of that up and communicate what you've learnt in some way, either to teach others or to lead others, or, as I say, potentially to be a parent. And you're not entirely comfortable with the power aspects of things. So if you are in a leadership role, it's not really necessarily what you wanted for power. You don't want power for power's sake, but this deep sort of sense of connection to others, responsibility for others, loyalty to others is part of the new you. It's just that you're more visible than you were before, but you've retained this sort of energy. So let's have a look at the shift around spiritual energy. Okay, so firstly we have lightning energy here. So this is the explorer, this is the dancer, this is the person that's very deeply connected to the spiritual and to what is unique about you. The rainbow, literally. Rainbows come after the storm and lightning brings the storm. So there is the clarity and the clearing of energy that you have and a real sense of brilliance. You're not going to lose that, but what it is showing is that you aren't needing to travel as far within or externally at this point. You've achieved some destination by the looks of things, as I say, some position, some role with others, whatever it might be. And it is important because now there are more responsibilities on you to find spiritual rest. You can't allow as much of this energy in. You need to sort of moderate it and modulate it for some reason. Then you're moving from beautiful place to blessings of the Supreme Being. Okay, so this is, again, in terms of Earth Warrior, Spiritual Warrior, it was all about beauty. It was all about exploring the natural world, exploring your inner world, exploring the downloads from spirit and the spiritual and all that kind of thing, and having a beautiful place. I mean, you have this sense here with the dog energy of community, communing with nature as well as within yourself. So very much that who am I amongst others? both animals and animal totems and so forth, and also other people. How do I fit in? What is beauty? So this was all about what is beautiful, what is balanced, what is elegant, what is inspired. Now it's about, I have a higher degree of responsibility. I have blessings from the Supreme Being here. So there's a sense of being divinely guided around this greater role that you have. So there's a consistency here. Your then was really about understanding who you were and what mattered to you on a values level. Your now is about some degree of responsibility to others and how you pass that on generationally, teaching, leadership, and so forth. So let's use the Penumbra Tarot and let's ask firstly, from this, so if you've gone from the internal and external exploration through to the level of responsibility, what comes after this? What are you evolving to in terms of having come to this position of responsibility? Okay, I'm getting a very specific thing first that I want to say. Because we had the father archetype and then we have the Empress reversed here, I think there could be some people who've come to this that have some sort of parental responsibility, maybe with only one partner. There could be a single parent who are coming to this reading. It's very specific. It doesn't have to be the case. But I am getting that there is maybe at least one child involved in some of this. If not, it is tilting towards being a teacher, I think, or some sort of child services support or something like that, as opposed to being the direct parent, but still having responsibility over the nurturing and growth of younger people. So I do think that there will be people who come to this reading who do something like that for a career, or who have some kind of complicated relationship around child rearing. You could even be a grandparent or a godparent or something like that. That could be part of what's being picked up here. But it's just interesting that we have the reversed Empress and then we have the father there. It feels like it's a different, in some way it's a different sort of parenting. It could also be sort of same-sex parents or something like that. It could be something, there's something a bit different. If it's around parenting, there's something a bit different around it for some reason. Or it could be saying what you learn being a parent yourself, you then take out to others in some sort of leadership role. But there's something, there's definitely the sense of new growth, new beginnings materially, new births, all that sort of thing, but in an unusual sort of way, I think. And so it may be, as I'm getting, maybe part of the evolution is going through your own sort of period of parenting. That may evolve you into somebody who helps others to do it in some way. That may be one of the things. Or role models, how to do it differently. Because there's a sense here also with the Four of Pentacles reversed of being more relaxed about the structure around this and about the ways in which a responsible person, whether it's with children, whether it's with an organisation and a team that you're leading or whatever it is, there's a sort of a relaxing of the energy to allow something new to come in. So if you are in a leadership role at the moment, it may be showing that you're going to move further up the ladder and you're going to be a mentor and coach of others to get them to become leaders as well, rather than always being the person who tells people what to do. Certainly, part of your evolution retains a really core part of you that we saw in both of these things, which is this generosity of spirit, this connection to others. You're a natural collaborator. You're not going to lose that. If you're worried because you've gone into maybe a more leadership role, for instance, or you've got more responsibility on you in some way, that you're going to disconnect, you're not, because you are too emotionally empathic. With the Throne of Cups, which is like the King of Cups in sort of other tarot, this is about someone very empathic, very healing. There is something healing about this. I do think that for some of you, there's something quite different about the way that you, as I say, nurture others, or the way that your family construct is, or the way that you lead. There's something new and different and yeah, not of the norm, but it is very, very empathic, very healing and very collaborative. So you're evolving into a collaborative leader, a collaborative parent, a community support person, something like that, where this difference that you understood and the preparedness to look for what is different, that exploratory part of you connected with the connection to others allows you to bring in something new. Okay, so let's ask, what particular pathway is needed? What do you need to really focus on to become this very different leader, this very different nurturer, this very different collaborator, whichever of those ones sort of fits for you? Okay, so what I heard as I sort of put those out is sort of know your own strength. Your people will come. Because with the Three of Torches here, I get very much this sort of sense of someone finally taking up the baton and moving forward. You did come from being more introverted and very other person centered. You're now in some sort of position, you're evolved in some sort of position or role where a lot of those skills are now focused on someone, but in a different way, where you're leading or nurturing in some way, and you're evolving into someone who takes that ability and helps a bigger span of people. And part of it, because you very much care about community, is have faith. Don't worry about the details. You will find your community. You will find your people. If you are very different, like as I say, different in sort of like nuclear family versus same-sex family or something like that, or somewhere on the gender spectrum or any of those sorts of things, do not be concerned. You will find your people. Your innate truth and caring and kindness are going to bring that. But it does look like you could worry for the Olympics. So Spirit is saying don't worry so much about that. Don't worry about the fact that you now have responsibility. You may have felt the you before could be carefree and could experiment and could do whatever, and the consequences were not that major as long as you kept your friends and key relationships. Whereas now you may feel every decision I make has a greater purpose to it, and I'm beginning a much bigger journey. And there's a way in which that is true, but it's only your mind that can cause you issues, and it can sap on a natural strength that you have here. So with the Agent of Swords, which is like the Knight of Swords reversed, there is a sense of putting brakes on yourself in terms of how you think about things and worrying. So Spirit is saying don't be so much in your head about this. And you probably were before with an introvert energy. You probably explored a lot internally. That's not where your strength is coming from. Your strength is leading out on the new journey and just knowing that your people will be with you, because they will. Okay, so given that seems to be where you're evolving and what Spirit wants to say about it, we then want to actually get a few pieces of advice from different sorts of oracles about how to evolve into this person and do it in a way that you're comfortable with. So we're going to start with astrology first of all. Okay, so Saturn in and of itself, I think here is talking about this higher and higher degree of responsibility. You are meant, see, it's interesting, Saturn is Kronos. Kronos was, in Greek mythology, was sort of like the father of the universe, so to speak. He got a little bit despotic and was eventually taken over by Zeus, his son. But this is not to say that's going to happen to you, but there is that sense of time and responsibility and power. And I think part of this is to own that side of you. If you know your astrology chart, look at where Saturn is. It's going to tell you something about where that responsibility works at its height. And if there are any aspects from planets that are difficult to Saturn, where there are things that you need to bear in mind. You are a very private person. One of the things that you're going to need to do is come out of that private space, because we've also got cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn. These are signs that are meant to be assertive, self-starter, leader. So your leadership journey comes from this wisdom that you have, but you do have to be prepared to come out more and more into the world. It feels like somebody who had a great time with friends, exploring who you were, developing some great expertise and knowledge, moving into a nurturing or sort of first rung leadership role, but who now realizes how large the world is for you, but that you've got to move more and more into the assertive side of you. and less into the side that wants to sort of sit back and be private. There's something public, I think. I think you're going to be a role model at some level or other for people as you move into who you're developing into. So let's use the Heart Code Oracles to look at different aspects. So we'll look firstly at career, then at relationships, and then at lifestyle in the energies to move towards who you are evolving into. So career has trust. Yeah, trust. I think a lot of this is going to be around your career or vocation. I do think that you can trust that you're going to have the right people around you. You are divinely guided from the Supreme Being, that you have in your kit bag what you need to be a really good leader and role model. So trust that. Don't second guess yourself, because as I say, you do kind of do that to some degree. Let's look at relationships. Judgment. So yes, use your judgment. I think one of the things that people who are very other person centered, and you are very other person centered, do have to bear in mind is that you will probably bend over backwards for people, and you will probably give the benefit of the doubt sometimes when you shouldn't. And the more that you move, the stage that you're operating on, the sort of responsibility that you're operating on, the more that moves up the line, the more you have to exercise your judgment and decide who are your people, who are with you, and who might be the naysayers that get into your head and try and make you doubt yourself, particularly if they're competing with you. It's very interesting that Judgment and Saturn are together there. Again, you have a wisdom. There is a real wisdom to you, and so don't doubt that. Let's have a look at lifestyle. Cycle. So I think they're saying that things come in cycles, and there's a real growth cycle. I mean, if this is for some of you around parenting, then there is the cycles of growth for children into adolescence, into adulthood. There are cycles around all of that to pay attention to and to keep your life moving forward in those cycles and recognizing those cycles. So I think you would actually be very adept at this. As I say, I think you're very wise. So I think that's really just Spirit saying, just let the cycles happen. Have the trust in what's happening for your vocation. You have the judgment you need for people. Just go with the cycles. There's almost a Wheel of Fortune sense around this. Just let things unfold. Okay. So we also want to have a look at some elemental energy. So elemental energies that will help you evolve into this person. Earth. And volcanoes. Wow. So what this is telling me, you are very grounded. This is like the Ace of Pentacles. This is this sense of responsibility, and also a sense that many of you may be very well traveled, I think, at least internally in your mind. But I think many of you may have traveled quite a bit around the world, or may do that as you evolve more and more into who you are. But grounding yourself is important because you are an agent of change. This is your role model of something different. There's something very different about you. And what you are bringing is important, and this brings a lot of power with it, a lot of responsibility, but it's also very transformative. It's very fiery. It's very creative. So that's why it's important, I think, to bring your wisdom in and to sort of come out a bit from behind the shadows. You will always be able to ground. Do not doubt that. Trust that you can bring the material outcomes that you need, but you go through the change because you're meant to model this. I mean, and I think that fits with Rainbow, to be honest. It's all the sort of diversity and inclusion energy around that particular choice that brought you here. Okay, so we're going to finish off with a couple of Chinese fortune cards just to see the fortune energy around you at the moment as you evolve, and then the Astro Chakra cards to see the current and then the evolving energy for you. So firstly, some Chinese fortune energy. Abundance and children. Yeah. So some of you, some of this journey is literally about being a parent. Some of you, it may be a career that is involved with children. Some of it may be about mentoring, coaching, leading other people, or working in some sort of area where children are important. So there's something about children. And if it's not a literal child, it's maybe a creative child, something you create that is like a child to you. Whatever it is meant to bring you abundance. What you bring to this, your special flavour to this, which is different to the norm, which has come from the explorative side and the community and connection focus side, is going to bring you abundance and is something new, something growing, or something to do with children. Okay, so to finish off, as I say, I'm going to pull a couple of Astro Chakra cards. Here's going to be where you are now, and here's what you're evolving into. Okay, so part of your evolutionary journey is to become more and more the great communicator, the great leader, the great coach, the great parent, all of those things. This is very much doubling down on it. Because it's saying right now, your communication skills, your throat chakra, is very much well aligned to who you are trying to be, your life path and your truth. So the exploration you did before has started to develop the true you. Even if some of this feels like more responsibility than you kind of naturally thought you wanted to have, it is part of your life path, and it comes from your heart chakra, from your deep caring. And there we have Mercury with it. So there's a kind of a self-acceptance. I do think there's a journey for you of, I can't be free forever. I actually do need to take on responsibility. This is part of who I am, but I will do it because of love, and I will communicate that. And part of it, what I think you will communicate to others because of whatever is different about you, is self-acceptance. This is part of, you are embodying the message, the teaching that you have. And that leads you more and more to being this great communicator. With the moon and Mars energy in the throat chakra there, it's like having them conjunct. So your emotions, your capacity to voice feelings connects with your ambition, brings you the abundance. I think that you are moving from the introverted self-exploration into, as I say, being a role model and being a teacher and a leader and a nurturer of others. So I think that's a really lovely evolutionary path. I hope that that resonated for you. I hope it was helpful and you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you have any comments, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So these cards, at first we have the gold card that brought you here. And then we have, this is the person you were, this is the person you are. And then when we get to tarot, we're going to be looking at what you're evolving into. We're also going to look for the person you were and the person you are, some energies that are spiritual as well, but I wanted to look at these first in a fairly clear way before laying that potential energy on the picture. This is a very specific type of evolutionary path, I think. It's very interesting that you chose gold, expensive, luxurious, abundant, heavy. It could also be that some of you connect to alchemy and like the concept of the spiritual evolution to gold from base metal. So it could be either thing, but I do think that many of you, the world that you've come from, the person that you've been, has had a certain degree either of privilege, or that at the very least you felt free to be able to explore who you were, to seek who you were. It could be seeking spiritually. It could be an alchemical connection there with a white rose and then gold. But it also could have been creative. It could have been enjoying the good life with Taurus and so forth. And there's a sense here with soft, cute, round, short, quiet of someone who had a relatively, I mean, everybody has their struggles, settled and comfortable life. So that from that you were able to seek for the inner knowing, the inner sort of drives and so forth, and create potentially in a very sensual sort of way, in a very sort of earthy sort of way, like a sculptor or a painter or something like that. There's a sort of a sense of you were someone who was about the creative exploration, the good life, the sort of soft, warm, gentle sort of energy. So that is there, and that has remained, but it has almost flipped. Something has happened in your life, I would say, or your awareness of this and then some sort of aha moment where you've seen others didn't have it, or maybe you are now in a position where you want to make sure that others have it, like maybe something's been under threat or you've taken on a political cause or whatever. But you've moved from this sort of person who was into enjoying the life and the creativity to someone who is really a protector of others. We have camouflage here, hidden, protective, tough, outdoors. There was nothing weak about you, but maybe people wouldn't have seen it. Maybe people would have thought this person is into the good life and they're lovely and they're fun to be around and they're creative, but they wouldn't have thought of you as a fighter. But you really are, and something is making you evolve into that. You, in fact, are a bit of a rescuer. You see others who are not as well off or privileged, or alternatively, you may have not come from privilege, you may have come from the opposite, but you might have been very happy within yourself, but something has made you realize that on a systemic social level, that isn't good. And so you now want to rescue others, and you are much more ambitious about that. You really admire other people. I mean, you could literally at the moment also be in love with someone with the admirer there, and that might be, you may be trying to rescue them or protect them in some way. But I think you actually admire people. I think for most of you admire people. You admire their courage, particularly courage in adversity. And you want to use that creative energy, that fiery energy now to be a bit of a warrior. So you're now about rescuing, supporting, looking after people. This could manifest in your relationships. It could manifest in your career. You could literally have gone into something like the army, potentially, or you just might have taken on a kind of hero's journey, like a literal hero's journey, but coming from a genuine love for and creative sort of spiritual connection with others. You want the best for everybody. You want the best for yourself, but you want the best for everybody. And I think you have a very finely tuned antenna for social justice. So let's have a look at the spiritual sort of energies that you are dealing with then and now. Community, reflection. Yeah, I think something about community, something about the community you were in. So it was either a community that was very well off, or it wasn't, and you only as you grew and you started to realize, you started to work out that there were systemic issues. It's one or the other. But community, feeling comfortable in yourself, feeling able to seek out, feeling able to enjoy life was very much part of who you are. But you've gone through a reflection. Something has happened. Something has happened. It could be education, it could be a relationship issue, whatever it is. You are far more reflective now. You far more go into the space of really assessing a situation. Very strategic, actually. Like this is, underneath this creativity is a problem solver and a strategic approach for, like a brilliant chess player, for instance, that kind of energy. And then we also have, coming from Clan of the Wolf Heart, we are the ones we've been waiting for. That's interesting. To a guardian energy, the guardian of Papa Tuanaku. So that again, this shows the same thing. You really felt part of something, and I think you're still part of it, to be honest, but I think now you're fighting for it. I just think whether it's, as I say, a relationship, whether it's friends, whether it's community groups, for many of you it may well be, but it also may be some sort of political ideology that you got into when you were young, and you go, we are the ones we've been waiting for, we're going to move forward as a community, but something is threatening it. You're reflecting on that, and you're now wanting to be the guardian. You are taking on a more responsible role to protect others rather than just be with others and be excited about it. There's something. This is very, very clear. If you've come to the right reading, you will know what I'm talking about. You will know that there is something that you are now protecting. So what do you evolve into out of that? So let's see with the Penumbra Tarot. Firstly, what is your evolutionary path from this particular growth cycle? And then we'll also have a look at, what generally is needed to bring that about for you. So firstly, what are you evolving into? This is very interesting, I have to say. So I think many of the people here are taking on the powers of the world in one form or another. With the devil card there, I don't think you're evolving into the devil. That's not what this is saying. You are looking at a new material way of doing things, a new distribution of resources, a different way to invest in people, community. It does come from childhood connection, things that you learnt when you were very young, I think even younger than this energy. And there is almost a nostalgia for what you thought was good and pure in that time, but you want to actually create something that is lastable, that is material, that is an investment. And I feel like it's an investment in the future and children and next generations and so forth. You're definitely evolving into someone who's carrying a torch, taking an idea, taking a cause, moving on to create something. And with the ace there's a blessing around that. I think you're doing the divine's work in whatever form you want to call that. I think you are doing something that is very necessary and something that is very good and something that relieves and releases energies that were more dark, shadowy or difficult. As I say, maybe things that you saw when you were young, or maybe things that have taken the shine off your youthful naivety and this sort of sense that life is to be enjoyed. Whatever this thing was, I mean, there's still something, it's still pointing to something, a power struggle, an issue, an awareness of the powers of the world, something like that. So you're taking that forward, but you're taking it as a baton holder, someone who will go in and start and take something from its very early ideas into something that becomes a lasting investment. So given that, what advice does Spirit have for you to really support you in this journey? As I really think you're important. What you are doing is important. So what advice is Spirit going to... You weren't wrong that you were one of the ones we've been waiting for, actually. So Spirit's advice... So you've got a second ace. There's definitely a double blessing over this. It does show it. It makes sense so that they're turning up here in these sort of parts of the reading because they are about what you're evolving into. So it's something new. It's a different philosophy, a different way of doing things, a different argument, a different material basis. There is some cutting away of what you used to believe necessary. So there is almost like a getting of wisdom. There is almost a loss of innocence. There is something almost innocent about what you were and then what you're dealing with. And Spirit is saying don't mourn that. Don't worry about letting go of some of that because it's taking you to a greater degree of emotional authenticity and sort of psychic connection with others and emotional connection and connection to the heart. Rather than connection to power, it's a connection to emotional authenticity. Spirit is saying, however, that you do need to moderate how fast you move on things. Because on one energy, we have the Eight of Torches, which is like the Eight of Wands, and this is getting on with it and moving very fast. But then we also have the Ten of Torches, which can burn out. So I think Spirit is saying your one Achilles heel, the one thing you need to make sure of is that you don't overpace yourself. That there is a lot of promise for this and to have a material outcome, but don't burn yourself out. And I'm getting very specifically that if you feel that, if you're feeling like mental tension, tight neck, I'm feeling, tight throat, hard to sort of speak, that sort of thing, take the time out. Go to a spa, like I'm literally seeing like the Crown of Cups or Queen of Cups is in a spa. So do remember that Taurian side of you, that side that wanted the good life and to enjoy life and so forth, and the creative energy. Don't let that burn out in the cause. Know when you have that sort of nervous energy. It's going to show up that way. It's nervous energy. It's thinking too fast. It's not being able to sleep. There's something there because you've got to be in for the long haul because you've got a quest ahead of you, I have to say, pile 2. All right, so given that, let's have a look at some advice for you. So we're going to start firstly with astrology. So astrology advice to help you evolve into this leader of people, leader of a cause, creator of some new system potentially. The third house, Sun, and Cardinal. Yeah. So firstly, with the Sun turning up, that's your life path. You are on your life path. I think it is saying that you are already on your way. You know who you are, and that's part of your strength, that you know who you are. You also know who you aren't. I think some of what you used to live into, it wasn't that it was inauthentic to you, but you are so much more than that. You're so much more than your beginning. Your real strength is your communication with the third house. Mercury is the planet that rules that. The ruling signs, Gemini. You are a thinker. You are a communicator. You will lead people through your thoughts and your words and so forth. And you do need to be assertive. You do need to take. And there's a little bit of a hint there because camouflage is also sometimes about being hidden. So it is probably saying that as you evolve into this role, you will need to be more and more visible for what you do. It might be at the moment that you sort of sit in the admirer state and the rescuer state, and you're not necessarily being seen on the stage with it in some way, but there's something where you need to be more assertive and more seen to bring this about. Okay, so let's have a look at some aspects of your life. So we'll start firstly with career, then we'll look at relationship, and then we'll look at lifestyle in general to help you. So career, we have purpose. Yeah, you do need to have a purpose. You do need to have a cause, and your career will connect to this purpose in some way. If it doesn't, I think you're going to feel frustrated and maybe burnt out. It might be a double message there. Try and align what you do with your career to your purpose, rather than trying to do both and burning the candle literally at both ends. Relationship energy. Twin flame. Okay, all right. So some of you, through doing this, will find a twin flame. It may be that some of you, that was the aha thing. There was maybe your twin flame is someone that you feel you need to rescue or protect in some way. Maybe they are part of the cause. Maybe the two of you together can do the cause. Yeah, and in which case, I mean, you'll both be at similar energetic levels. So if you work together, you get a stronger energy for it. But it may well be that it was the shock of something like a twin flame that was what took you from this to where you are now. And then lifestyle. Pattern. Okay. So I think this is showing that part of, because it's a very material thing, it's about resources, it's about power that you're dealing with. I think that part of the thing that will help you is looking at how to have patterns and regular routines and stuff in your life so that you don't burn out and so that you understand the environment that you're in, that you see it on a very material level. Because I think you're a person with a cause, you're very fiery, but part of what you're meant to be developing is very structured, very material, and fits with the patterns of life. Okay, let's look at some energetic energy. Let's look at some energy sort of advice for you. Music. And then creative energy and so forth. An outer core. Okay, so music, some of you may in fact be able to lead the charge through music and creativity. Some of what you were may be in fact the thing that helps you win the battle. You may not, some of you may not do it on a political stage or an organisational stage. You may do it through music in much the same way as certain sort of musicians have been known for pushing the counterculture and so forth. So if not, music may be your way to get back into your centre and your enjoyment and your balance and so forth. And I'm getting, for some of you, your twin flame might have a music connection. So I'm just saying that because that just came to me. The outer core is about fluidity, it's about change, it's about allowing that to occur, but it is also about not being too hidden. I do think part of your journey will be from the good life to the protector to someone who's actually taking a cause on, and some of that will be almost wearing your heart on your sleeve. Okay, so to finish up pile 2, firstly going to pull a couple of Chinese fortune cards for you, and then we're going to look at the Astro Chakra for energies from where you are now to where you're evolving. But firstly, let's get a couple of fortune energies for you. Family. And reunions. Okay. So some of this, I mean, we did have the Six of Cups before. There was this sort of sense of whatever you've come from, people that you might be protecting. For some of you, it may be family that you're protecting, or extended family, or people who are like your soul family. Certainly there's something there, and there's something from the past. And reunions, I mean, that could be the soul family with the twin flame. It could be around, that's a way to be able to get support around you and feel the energetic support that you need. But there's something that's connecting to you to family, your background, your heritage, your ancestors, those sort of things. And I'm also getting that some of you will have ancestor spirits around you that are actually supporting you. Okay, so let's have a look, lastly, at Astro Chakra. So as I say, a couple of cards for where you are now and a couple of cards to what you're evolving into. Okay, so what I'm getting from this is you came from a sort of like the explorer, the freedom seeker, the creator. You moved into now, I think potentially from a twin flame or from some sort of family or other sort of deep connection, need to protect someone or some people in some way. You are eventually moving to something, as I say, that's on a bigger stage. Right now, the thing that's driving you is your heart chakra with love and wanting to communicate self-acceptance for yourself and for others. Maybe part of what you're trying to rescue in people is their sense of self. Maybe you are dealing with where people have brought people down or made them feel lesser in some way. And you're very much using your psychic connection to do that with the sixth chakra, with the third eye. It's a transformative thing. You're revealing, I think, something to people. A large chunk of this at the moment is about you revealing the power structures or the manipulations or something that is around to protect and rescue people. But this is going to evolve into the supporter of originality and the genius and the new with the fifth chakra, the throat chakra with Uranus, and the person who then realizes what you've transformed from is in fact leading you to your inner purpose, your inner self with the sun and the intuition. You are really, really connected psychically. You are really, really connected to the collective, and that's one of the reasons why you can actually affect change in this space. But it's, you know what it makes me think? It makes me think of like the Buddha. I'm not saying you're the Buddha, but like just to give you some analogies, the Buddha who started in wealth and then eventually went to enlightenment and brought about a sort of spiritual practice that has helped far more than they have, and understood that it wasn't all about gold in terms of lifestyle. It was around the gold of the spiritual development. Or St. Francis of Assisi, who again came from privilege and enjoyment and eventually gave that up to have a bigger family, a bigger connection to the world around helping those that were disadvantaged. So that's your pathway, I think. You're that sort of person. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share about it in the comments, I'd love to hear about that. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. So along with the blue card that brought you here, there's a couple of other cards from that deck. And this side is talking about where you have been, who you were, who you are now. And we're then going to move into tarot with who you will become. And there's actually quite a synergy between who you were and who you are now, but there are also some significant differences and maybe a little bit of a hint as to why this occurred, to like why you've sort of evolved into this person from this person. What is similar? It's interesting that blue you've chosen, which is about throat, speaking, calm, cool. You're a very good communicator, and this is occurring on both sides, and it will continue into your evolution, I have no doubt. It's part of who you are. Also, what is absolutely intrinsic to you is the caring for others, because I think it used to come up primarily around your family or extended family or any friends that you felt were like extended family with Cancer. Cancer is very caring, generous, tender, supportive. It's a water sign. It's emotional, but it's very protective, and it's very about family and all of that sort of thing. And the pig in Chinese astrology is also very caring and generous, but is a bit more outgoing and a little bit more materialistic. So it feels as though the shift here has been from very family focused and smaller friendship community circles into something that's more material, probably in study or career, something like that, where that caring has remained, but the focus of it is different. And it looks as though when you were younger, you were more sort of rebellious. You had the basic protection of your family, and you also felt protective, I think, within that thing. But that allowed you to be rebellious and to be a little bit of a queen. Like, I feel like you were someone who in your family would have been very much a star, or you may have yearned towards that. You might have rebelled if you weren't getting that. If you were actually around others who wanted to be the star, then there may have been a little bit of an issue that you dealt with. So it's going to be one or the other, but there's a rebellious, sort of strong person who has a solid basis and cares about others, but also wants to define themselves. You're highly charismatic, actually, probably very physically attractive, I think, and that also has remained in both cases. But it feels like here it was on a smaller stage. You were the queen of the stage, but it may be that there was a relationship that you came across, and this sort of probably in early adulthood or something like that, that felt star-crossed, or that you felt that some of your position and your queendom in a way, and this is not about gender, and your wish to be different and rebel and so forth was star-crossed in a different way. So not so much about romantically, but maybe the need to have the sort of family focus or some more conventional sort of background or whatever was sort of like in the way of who you wanted to become. Whereas what you're moving into, you retain this caring for others, you retain this incredible charisma, but I feel like you're a performer and you're a gypsy and you move a lot. Like I feel here you were kind of almost bound to a place or a set of people. Here you're much freer, but you still care about people, and you become the alchemist. And I think in this case, it's really about you become your own manifestation. So whether you become literally like a performer in some way, and some of you may be, or whether it's just something, your own personal brand, your own personal style, you've really integrated a lot of things within yourself. You understand yourself very, very well. And so the rebellion becomes just a gypsy soul, a freedom. And the star-crossed, I think, becomes someone who starts to understand the powers of the universe and how to operate. And the queen becomes the star. So very interesting. I feel like at the moment you are starting to blossom into being really seen. You may be living a very, very sort of flexible, adaptable, peripatetic sort of lifestyle, moving around a lot potentially. But it is all in the service of becoming truly who you are, spiritually aligned as well. And you retain your caring for other people. Many of you, you can get up on a platform and talk and people will listen to you, or you can sing and people will hear you. There's something about the charm of your voice, but also the charisma that you have. So let's have a look at the spiritual energies from then to now for you. Energy balance, to intuition. Okay, so then you were keeping a lot of things in balance. The sort of rebel, the inner queen, the sort of relationship stuff and all that sort of thing. You were seeking to find that balance. Who were you really? And it's interesting with all the chakras there, then leading to the alchemist and intuition. This is telling me that you have had an aha moment that says that in many ways you are primarily in the higher order of the chakras. You are very psychically connected, the alchemist. You have a real sense of who you are, and that's how now you can do this, not so much within the comfort and protection, but maybe limitation of family and friends, but more truly who you are because your intuition has been developed and has been opened up by seeking the way out of this problem, I think, into the alchemist. Then in terms of earth warriors, you go from Kunta Yachak, which is blessings from the sun of Hananpachu, and we then go to Viracocha, honor the light. See, the honor that sort of alchemy, the sort of higher orders of the Kabbalah, your inner knowing and so forth. That's the guiding star. That's your North Star. That's your pole star. It's the thing to follow. The light. You are of the light. You are of those sorts of energies. And also, so I think it's actually throat chakra and then also the two upper chakras for you. It's how you communicate that. And in terms of this is a sense of heritage with the son of Hanan Pucha. We have the sense of generational spiritual warriorship and guardianship. So I do think it's moving from a family or community basis into being more your own avatar, your own guiding light. Okay, so that's a very interesting evolution. Let's have a look at what you're moving into. So now we're going to ask Spirit with the tarot about what are you evolving to from this person who has now reached a certain degree of freedom while still connected to others and a real sense of knowledge of yourself, particularly psychically. What are you moving into? What are you evolving into? So firstly, I want to go to the Three of Pentacles here, and I want to go to it particularly because you've become the alchemist, and we have a red rose. In the alchemy process, the red rose comes very early in the alchemical process. It turns into eventually the white rose, having having really fully gone through itself. So I think this is saying that you are well on the way, but you are still evolving. Part of your evolution is to move from the red rose, and even the alchemist here is sort of pink, through to the white rose. So truly becoming who you are. And your pathway to do it, and it's not yet found, you don't yet have the foundation of that, but that's okay, because we have the Ace of Pentacles the right way up here. So you are moving into that. What this really looks like on a material level is yet to emerge. You are allowed to still be a bit of a gypsy and an explorer around this, because it will help you come to this energy, what it is that you bring up. And I do think for many of you, you're a performer in some way. Now, if you're not literally on stage in some sense, you know, and on movie screen or a musician or something like that, I think that there's something performative about what you do. There's something that's very emotionally resonant and gives a lot of sort of opportunities and feelings to other people, and really ignites teams and people to believe in themselves and to see the fire of creativity. But I feel like literally the Fool here is like a jester. You could be a comedian, you could be somebody who uses almost, because this particular Fool looks a bit like the Magician as well to me, and using misdirection and the dice and just going with the flow, this sort of freedom energy. You become you become yourself. You are your work in progress. You are your product. You are your brand. You are the person that people want to look at. There's something about you. So what can Spirit tell you to help you evolve into this person? Very brave and very individual. So there's something, I think Spirit is saying there's something that has happened, and I think this is picking up this star-crossed thing. I think that for many of you, you had a love early in your life, or recently. This may not even be that early in your life. It may be that you are just at a stage in your life where you've moved away from family connections, school, university, early career or whatever, and you're now starting to move into who you really are as a more autonomous person. That's a possibility. But there's been something with that star cross and with the Three of Swords reversed. It's like there is some heartbreak that you still need to let go of. Something, maybe you weren't understood, maybe it was a star-crossed relationship, maybe it was issues within the family that on the surface it looked great, but you weren't really fully supported. There's some emotional pain that needs to be let go of. Something with the element of cups, which is the Page of Cups reversed, where it stopped you from really articulating to yourself what love was and what you wanted from love, and how you would be able to complete a cycle with the World reversed to bring in what you want. And this is saying that it's through your creative, it's through how you create yourself that you can better articulate that. That what's happened is that it's been the opinions of others, and it's been philosophies and ideas and rules and regulations and so forth that have caused some of this star-crossed feeling. But the more that you go into your creativity, the more you will also resolve that and let go of the pain, because it's the one thing left. It's almost like you've gone through the alchemical process, but some of it didn't burn out in the Negredo, and it is something to do with a relationship or you in relationships, say to family and so forth, and whether you were seen and appreciated. So for some of you, it may be that you just felt like you were born into the wrong family, that you love your family, you're protective and all of that sort of thing, but somehow you just didn't belong. And you need to go out and find your own energy and your own tribe. And that could be part of it. But I do think for some of you, there's a relationship that you need to let go of. And the idea, it's like letting go of the idea. It's like you had an idea of what this was, but it actually wasn't that. So you're not really mourning the relationship, you're mourning the idea. And if you can understand that, and understand that you will bring in the right energy if you're more just true to yourself, then I think that starts to sort that out, and it takes you towards your evolution faster. Okay, so let's look at some other advice from Spirit about this. We're going to start off with some astrology advice around moving to this evolved person who is, I think, someone that people really watch and really follow, and who has their tribe and inspires their tribe. So the second house, Mars, and conjunction. Okay, I'm going to deal out to see what planets are the conjunction before I talk about all of it together. Saturn, Saturn and the moon. Okay. All right. So I might go to that first. This suggests, so conjunctions are the two energies coming together, and normally kind of, well, they do one of two things. Either if they're very aligned energies, they make an easeful energy around it. If they're not aligned, they can kind of almost push up against each other, and you need to kind of work out the balance. I do think with this, there is something, I think there might have been stuff in your family, particularly with Mars here as well. So Mars, Moon, Saturn, there may have been sort of parental sort of rules on you, or you struggled with that and with what was acceptable and so forth. There might have been that kind of energy, because with Saturn and the moon together, there is a need to connect your emotional nature with your wisdom and the structure of who you are in the world. And there can be a sense of suppressing your emotions. So it's interesting that we have this. It's like it's an unresolved emotional issue. If you can release that, use the wisdom of Saturn and the emotional clearance of the moon, then you can move through this quicker. And some of that is about reigniting your ambition in some way, who you really want to be in the world, because you're meant to make money. You're meant to be seen, and you're meant to make money, and you're meant to, the values that you hold true, to be part of what actually makes the money for you. So the you that you're evolving into has to do with your values as well. But this is your potential Achilles heel, where you almost let your Saturnian side sit on your emotions and not resolve them. So that's why Spirit is saying, think about that. Let's have a look in various aspects of your life. So let's have a look firstly at career, then we'll look at relationship, and then we'll look at general lifestyle. So career, we have resilience. So some of you, there may literally be some battles going on at the moment in your career. So, and it may be because you're so different, I think, because your energy is so different. Let's have a look at relationships. Searching. Yeah, I think you are searching for your people. You are searching for the right relationship. It's part of what the gypsy soul is there, and you probably need another gypsy soul, actually. You may have been, around people who wanted more conventional sort of relationships. You need to find the right energy for you. And then lifestyle. Challenge. So you like a challenge. You like a challenge because it makes you part of who you are, and your lifestyle is about doing that, and about traveling, and about evolving, and about taking on the sort of Mars energy or whatever. So don't shy away from that. I don't think your lifestyle, it may challenge some people. Your lifestyle may challenge some people potentially, but that's part of who you are, and you thrive in a challenge. So I think be aware of that. You have a lot of resilience. You can weather those storms if you need to, because as I say, you are your creation. Let's have a look at some energy advice that Spirit would give to you. Air and rock. Okay. So I think this might be one of the internal tensions that you need to balance, because air is about motion, movement, the gypsy soul, all of that sort of stuff. You move very fast, probably faster than most people, probably think faster, talk faster, all those sorts of things. So that is definitely part of who you are, and it propels you forward. But there is also endurance, a rock. What can be grounded? So remember, there was the grounded issue here to bring into being what that Ace of Pentacles promised. I think there is a career, there is a material thing, second house and so forth. You're meant to do well, but you need to be able to somehow balance this forward momentum, the gypsy soul, the individual, with something that has endurance, something that has a material heft to it. So that balance within, if you can get that balance within, then you're pretty much home and hosed, apart from letting go of whatever this emotional patterning is. So to finish off, I want to firstly draw a couple of Chinese fortune cards for you, and then we're going to look at Astro Chakra cards for where you are now and where you are evolving to. So firstly, just a couple of fortune cards around the energy for pole 3 at the moment, Spirit. Courage. Proposal. Okay. So that could be read in a number of ways. It could be that in the not too distant future, if not now, there is some relationship proposal, in which case you do definitely need to have sorted out whatever these other emotional patterns are. But it could also be a proposal of a work or operation, a contract. You know, if you're an actor, you could be given an offer to be in a starring role. There's an offer of some form coming to you that does require a bit of courage. Certainly if it is about a relationship and about taking a relationship to the next step, I think there is some courage, because you need to let go of these patterns of what hasn't worked before. And that really puts a very strong highlight on that Saturn-Moon conjunction energy and how you deal with it. But I think that if you have the courage to take on the proposal, you move towards this evolution quicker. All right, so now, as I say, we're going to just finish off with a couple of Astro Chakra cards. 2 for where you are now, 2 for where you're evolving to. Okay. This very much fits. There is something around love with you. There's something around relationship with you that has been part of your evolution already. And so where you are now is transforming your idea of love. So you're doing all the work you need to do. That's the good thing. Pluto as a transformative energy can break through the oppression of Saturn on the moon very easily. And it allows a degree of gratitude in freeing yourself and more owning who you are, then being able to communicate with the 5th house chakra. So very much connecting to who you are, and we've got that twice, and the blue that you went to, your individuality, your originality with Uranus. So that which is unique in you is part of your evolution and part of what you're meant to communicate. And it's got a very strong spiritual connection. Where you're moving to is much more and more and more and more of the alchemist. Neptune in the 7th chakra is about your spiritual beliefs. They are going to become more and more part of what you are communicating. And that brings you more and more with the 5th chakra again around communication with the sun there to who you truly are. So as I said right from the beginning, you are evolving more into who you are, and to some degree everybody does, but for you it's on a bigger stage. It's got something to do with who you are is iconic in some way, and that's why it's important to not get sort of held back by relationships or old patterns or whatever. It's important to become more and more who you are and more connected to your spiritual center. So I hope that makes sense for you. I hope you enjoyed it, pile 3, and I hope that it resonated for you. If so, please like the video and subscribe, and if you care to share about it in the comments, love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 4, to your reading. So these cards are meant connecting with the green card that you chose to come to this reading, and some other cards from that deck to show who you have been, and this could be in your childhood, it could be in the last couple of years, it could be anything. It depends on what resonates to you and who you are moving towards. And I must say, of all of these, this has the most specific sort of sense to it. So I think you'll know whether or not you've come to the right reading. It doesn't literally, I think, mean it has to be these locations, but there is something in this energy around connecting to your heart and your love nature, and aspects of your personality and how that is evolving, that has to do with moving from feeling you are your own person, you are not part of any tribe, any family, any sort of fixed thing, that you are the loner, that you like to be on your own and so forth, and maybe travel the world, through to having a much stronger sense now of connection to your ancestry, your family lines, history in some way. Now, I am getting, for some of you, this may not be literal in the sense that you started earlier parts of your life in, say, South America and so forth for whatever reason, or with a connection to that sort of culture and so forth. Maybe you started off thinking that way because you felt more drawn to that and you came from a European background and you didn't feel like you connected to that, or it could be that literally was the kind of culture that you were around. But in either case, you kind of stood apart from it all, and you maybe had to wear certain masks or felt like you had to be different people for different requirements, and you kept a lot private and protected. I think you did care about your family. I don't think this necessarily means that you felt estranged from your family. I mean, some of you might have, but I think most of you probably did care about your family. But I think that there's something about your heritage or your ancestry that you used to not think was you. And now you either think, no, that was wrong, I just was looking in the wrong places or not understanding it, or you feel as though you found a particular line in your family, or that you feel that you found something like an ancestry from another life. So if you were kind of in, as I say, the South America sort of thing, but you've now sort of thought, oh, in a past life I was in Europe and I can really connect to those ancestral lines. There's something about location. And as I say, it doesn't even have to be South America and Europe. I think that this could be working literally for some people, but it could also just be saying location, that there is something, you have changed location, and that has changed your attitude around whether you are a person apart or whether you are part of a generational line and a legacy, or you have discovered past lives or whatever it might be. But there is a shift along those lines about a sense of belonging and heritage as opposed to a sense of standing alone. And in the process of going through that, you've moved from being sort of water and air energy, sort of protective emotional energy, and how you then portrayed yourself so that you could keep yourself a bit separate, through to passion and the water energy more being around fire and water. So it may in fact even be that it's around a significant relationship, love relationship that's come up that has made you feel more connected to a different group, a different ancestral line. You may even have like recently partnered up, got married, something like that. But there's a shift from thinking and being a little bit withdrawn through to passion, connection and so forth, that seems to also give you a sense of family, ancestral line and belonging in that way. So that's interesting. So let's have a look also at some other cards that were under the green card, and these are about spiritual energies that you were and have now evolved into. So spiritually, freedom. You see, you're all about freedom. Freedom was very important to you for some reason in the past. And this is the loner energy, like I will go my own way in whatever way this is. Moving towards intimacy. Yeah, there's something for you. If you've come to the right reading, there's something about love. There's something about connection. And I do think it is through probably a love connection that you are now starting to feel a sense of family and belonging. We also have White Buffalo Woman, which is about hopeful heart and so forth. This is about peace. So you wanted peace. I'd say if you felt a little bit out of touch with your family and the people around you, you liked the freedom because you didn't want to get caught up in arguments and difference and so forth. You were, as I say, protective of yourself emotionally and able to don a mask if necessary to keep the peace and so forth. But you're moving into, oh wow, Kanyini, in each other we find ourselves. There's definitely something. So I do think that this sense of heritage, ancestry, belonging is coming from a very powerful relationship that you are in at the moment, or you are about to be in, and you're just having that sense of that because you're starting to find connections that feel more you. So what does that evolve into? This is really interesting. So let's use the tarot and let's have a look at what evolutionary energy we have. Who are you evolving into as a result of this move from being the loner into somebody with much more of a strong connection with another person? Well, for a start, this relationship, this connection is going to bring you far more in touch with what is important to your heart. So it's interesting that you started with green there. You are very drawn at the moment to the evolutionary journey of the heart. It looks as though you've actually spent a long time, maybe in the past, burning the candle at both ends, really, looking for love, looking for what would make you happy. But now you've started to define what would make you happy. And so I think that this relationship helps you evolve towards that, towards what is truly emotionally authentic to you. And you are moving towards a decision about it. I think at the moment with the element of Pentacles, so that's like the Page of Pentacles, that's like the Page of Cups, you are moving towards understanding your own emotional nature better, not sort of burning everything out, so that you can make decisions ultimately about what family structure do you want, what family connections do you want, what legacy do you want, all of those sorts of things. So this is a profoundly personal journey we're talking about, but I think it is in connection with another person. And what you will determine first is what is love, then you will determine what does it look like in terms of foundations. And that makes sense because we aren't seeing earthy energy here. We're seeing sort of water energy and air energy that you come from. We're seeing water and fire here. But this relationship and defining the emotion around it and defining the connections, that's what starts to give you a sense of maybe where home is. I think you maybe traveled a lot or felt that you needed to travel a lot to find your home with a person, with a place, with a family, with a lineage, all of that kind of thing. So let's ask for Spirit's advice on how to best bring this evolution into being. So the first thing that I really heard as I put that out is have courage. Have courage to connect to your inner knowing. I feel this has a very twin flame or divine union feeling to it, I have to say. And there is a need, therefore, to have courage in what you feel in your inner knowing. Not to worry as much about all the sort of trappings of relationships and so forth. Some of you may, in fact, find your other half in a very different culture, a very different environment, and some of what's going to be something you have to have courage and go through and move through to evolve into this person who really knows what they want emotionally and can make the decisions to bring it in, may be to release some of that energy, all the sort of drama that might be around very different cultural backgrounds or something. So that's definitely the case, and not to feel dissatisfied if it takes a little bit of time. There is definitely a warmth and an energy and a connection going on, but it does require courage. There's something here, the courage to move from being a loner to being in deep intimacy, the courage to move from maybe one cultural milieu to another, the courage to move from feeling I'm everything I need in myself to being someone who is more who they are when they are with another person. So this is very, very strong relationship reading. Okay, so given that, let's have a look and see what other sort of advice Spirit can give you. So firstly, we're going to get some astrology advice for you, particularly to evolve into this. So we have Pisces, Uranus, and sextile. So we're going to have a look at what planets are in sextile before we go into the rest of it. Bear with me, it can take a little bit of time to get a planet. We've got one, Venus, that doesn't surprise me, this is all about love. And Mercury. Okay. So it's interesting, like with sextile, Venus and Mercury sextile, that's an aspect of ease. So once you actually have the idea, and this is picking up the Gemini thing, of what you really want from love, and I think it's what's different to the past, then the ease of the love comes through, and it's almost like an aha moment. It's very electric. It's very, if it's not a divine union, twin flame, it's what I would call a tower relationship, and that's not bad. It's just intense and sudden. It's sort of like someone who floors you. And I think most of you, because this is where you are now, have met that, or you have an intimation that it's coming in some way. You're traveling or you're about to travel. There's something that's bringing that in. But your capacity to communicate love is actually very, very good. And so trust in that. Trust in that, and trust in the individuality that you have and your capacity to show your heart and your softer side. And Pisces and Virgo both connect to the High Priestess. And I'm feeling in this case it's around the emotional connection. So your emotional connection to your psychic ability and so forth. I'm also feeling that Uranus gives the energy to break out of any of the chains of the devil there, so that's useful as well. Okay, let's have a look at different aspects of your life. So we're going to start with career, then relationship, and then lifestyle in general. So career, we have disapproval. So maybe some of you around your career, maybe this is why you've been a loner, has been that there's been some disapproval about what you did, and it could have been cultural, could have been family, it could have been ancestral, but again, you need to follow your own path. Don't be held back by the disapproval of others. Look at relationship, which would be particularly interesting for you given the nature of this reading. Realization, yeah. Everything everything becomes crystal clear because of the nature of love, and that's who you are, and moving towards that. That's where you find your heritage, your family, your belonging, all of those things that I think have been hard to have before because of disapproval around you. And then lifestyle, reluctance. Okay, so this is saying that again, you need to have the courage to do this. There is a certain reluctance to connect. Even though I think that you have this realization that love is what it's about, I think you haven't necessarily had great role models, or you haven't felt it in your family or around friends and so forth. There's something that makes you reluctant, and it is something you need to look at, something that you need to energetically shift so that your lifestyle allows this to come in. Could be just fear of being that close to somebody. So let's have a look at some energy advice for you. It might help shift the reluctance. Mountain and bushfires. Okay. So I think this is showing, this is a big mountain for you to climb, but it does get to clarity. Like once you actually allow that, and you allow some of the anger from the past, the disappointment from the past, the disconnection from the past to burn out, you can reach the top of the mountain, you can get the clarity. So there is some hurt or something you need to let go of, something that where you were disapproved of, or where you didn't feel that you fitted in. And if you let that fury burn out, then you can climb the mountain, then you can see this new horizon, you can see what you're evolving into. Okay, so to finish off pile 4, I firstly want to pull you a couple of Chinese fortune cards for the energy around this at the moment, and then we're going to use the Astro Chakra cards to show where you are now and where you're evolving to bring it all together. So firstly, Spirit, what are a couple of Chinese fortune cards for pile 4 at this point of their evolution? Courage, that's interesting, that came up for somebody else as well, for another of the readings. And good times. Okay, so courage, you can have good times, you can enjoy yourself. This is the thing, I think you're moving to a much happier, much more stable, much more connected place. You just have to have the courage. Don't be reluctant. Allow closeness. Okay. And given that promise, because I think there's a lot of promise in this for you, let's see the Astro Chakra energy where you are now and where you're evolving to. Okay. So you're still, I think you're kind of between these two energies. So some of you may not have met this person yet. You just might have a sense of it coming in. Some of you, as they might be traveling or doing something that's going to bring that energy in. Others of you may have just met the person, and you might be sort of pushing between, do I connect or don't I connect or whatever. And the reason I say that is that at the moment you're still putting a lot of store by being the individual. Your sense of self and power with the sacral chakra here with Uranus is about individuality, about non-conformity. So part of your reluctance around the relationship is it looks as though you feel like you'd have to conform to a different family structure, different culture, different requirements, something like that. So you're still kind of sorting that out because you're still on a kind of esoteric spiritual level trying to work out what is your life path, who truly are you. But connecting to that high priestess energy through the crown chakra is going to give you more and more of that sense. And I strongly feel in this it's about the union, because what you're evolving into is a life path with the sun that is about love, which is what you naturally gravitated to with the green energy at the beginning. And that's your essence. You are meant to have a great love. This is meant to be a big part of who you are and what you evolve into. And it's a journey because you've been a loner. This is actually moving into being more connected and having, as I say, starting a legacy, starting a family, something like that. And that's where you find your true power. Then you can communicate. You can use Mercury in your solar plexus chakra to show your self-esteem, the worth that you have. So you're no longer the rebel. You're no longer the loner. You're no longer the person that says, if I'm going to be nothing else, I'll be different. You become the person who's more connected through love to be able to communicate who you truly are. So I think there's an enormous amount of promise here, and I think it's actually a really lovely evolution, but you have to allow it to happen. You have to believe that it can happen, and then that allows through the courage for the good times to come in. So I hope that was enjoyable for you, Pile 4. I hope it resonated for you. I hope you enjoyed it. And if so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you care to share about it, I'd love to hear in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.